know why we shouldn't do it, right? So we just have to kind of go through this, and then I want to actually kind of talk about real, kind of more important parts about it. So basically, this is just sort of the disclaimer, right? That after this, we have talked about it, we have gone through safe design, and we're sort of all aware and accountable for understanding what plagiarism is. So that way, unintentionally, you can avoid your plagiarism. So if intentional plagiarism happens, we're all sort of clear and above board, we can talk about it, and you can sort of get the consequences taken care of. So, generally speaking, plainly speaking, plagiarism is presenting someone else's ideas as your own. Yes, Janet?
Are we writing this down? Are we supposed to be writing this down?
So, here's the answer to that question, and this is always the answer to this question.
Yeah.
Should I take notes? Yes, you probably should because you're in college. Do I have to remember this stuff? Yes, you do because you're taking a quiz on it. Is it common sense? Absolutely. So, knowing all of that, now you have everything you need to know in order to make good choices. Okay. So plagiarism, of course, is stealing someone else's ideas or words. So it can be more than just, copying and pasting some essay that you found online, right, or that you bought online. It can also be if you are, say, doing research, if you are trying to come up with ideas around your topic, and you go look at someone else's ideas and their interpretation of something, if you don't cite where you got that idea, that also is a form of stealing, right? So we're stealing sort of intellectual property. So it's good to really know and sort of not be scared to interact with other people's ideas in your papers, because that's one of the big goals in this class, is to become confident sort of using outside materials and blending them in with your writing in order to strengthen your ideas and strengthen your communications. But there are, of course, very particular ways that you have to do that in order to give credit where credit's due to other authors. So if you think about in our summaries, of course, how do we give credit where credit's due to someone else's ideas?
Citing.
Yeah, I remember particularly in our summaries though, because we don't have direct quotations, right? So we don't have to do the whole parentheses thing where we cite. But how do we avoid plagiarism in a summary, for example? Yeah.
Say the author so-and-so writes.
Yeah, good. So we mentioned the author's name, we mentioned the title of the work, where we got our information from, and we definitely use a lot of those reporting verbs, right? The author states, the author says, the author argues, the author explains. And we can do a lot of that in sort of the analytical part of our writing too, when we're using direct quotations in order to give credit where credit is due to other authors. So, breaking it down, plagiarism occurs when you put someone else's words into your own paper without putting quotation marks around them. So, of course, you copy word for word, something that you found in an article, an essay, book. That's going to be plagiarism. And as I said earlier, it also happens when you read about an idea or a fact and then put it in your paper without telling the reader where you got it. Now, there comes a certain point, and I saw that face you made, because there comes a certain point where you're like, okay, do I have to now quote sort of like normal things, right? Like, what if you are doing a research paper on the death penalty, say for example, and you read a bunch of other people's ideas on it, you look at a bunch of facts and statistics, and then you're writing a paper about the death penalty. Now, just because all the other writers who you have researched have written about it, does that suddenly mean you have to put quotation marks around the word death penalty?
No.
No, and how come? It's a common word, right? Those other authors who you are researching and sort of like using to build your own knowledge, they haven't coined the term death penalty, right? It's still sort of free and available to all of us. Now, if you take an idea of a specific interpretation of what the death penalty means that's like unique to that certain author, then you've got to give credit to that person, right? So knowing kind of where that line is of what can I just come out and say, what is sort of like general property intellectually that we're allowed to talk about, versus like what's a specific idea, interpretation, thought that an author had that's unique to them that I then have to give them credit for. Okay, so here's another example. Yes, John?
So, in a broad sense, when you have death penalty, is it almost automatically going to be assumed that at some point when you're writing about something that you could have covered something somebody else had said, or a point that they were trying to make, not knowing that they made that point because you didn't read it, so therefore you made the point the same way, just maybe even change it one word